All right, everyone. Hi, tribe. Emily Blossom here, your sexy, single, sober sister, over 50. And I'm excited for podcast number 3. Um, I went on 3 dates and then I ended it. And I can't wait to share what happened. I just want you all to know that I'm so proud of myself um, for not being in the dating field for over 3.5 years now and going through all the healing process that I've done, all the work. I could really see the work that I did um, in this dating process. And sometimes you don't know how you're doing in relationships when the only person you're in relationship with is yourself. So getting out there in the field, I was so nervous. I was so in my head about how this is going to go and um, how I'm going to react, how I'm going to be, what kind of person I'm going to show up as, what kind of triggers are going to be there. And you know what? I did fantastic. I am so proud of myself. I showed up as 100% healthy human being, which with my tool belt, with this toolkit of all these things, I did so good on getting. I followed the program. You guys, I followed this playbook and it worked. All right, so let's get into it. What happened? So, as you all know, I was getting super frustrated with swiping left and right. It's like jumping on a moving freight train, and it's like there's all these people, and um, none of them seemed to be real and connecting. And, it was just a big pool, like a big mud bath of a pool, is what it felt like, right? And then all of a sudden, this fish jumps out, right? And we connected. He put a little message on a picture of his addressing me directly, which I didn't know you could do that. That was new for me. But I was like, oh, wow, this person has actually addressed me directly and is sending me a message before we actually match with each other, which is great. That was a great trick, a great idea on his part because I was about to swipe left um, just based on the pictures, right? I was about to swipe left, but I didn't swipe left. And I read his little note, and his note made me laugh. And I started communicating. I went back to his profile and I was like, oh, who is this guy? Let me slow down and take a moment to look at his profile. And there were some things that we were connecting on, some things that we kind of had in common. He was a car guy, he was a local guy. Um, but I don't want to give too much about the person because I've also decided in this process, like when he and I started dating, I thought, how am I going to talk about this on Sexy Single Sober and not feel like I'm revealing too much or disrespecting anybody or um, that's not what this whole thing is about. This whole thing is about disconcerting women, healing, getting out there and dating again after trauma. So it's really about me and not about the other person. So I'm going to be limited. I know that's disappointing. I'm going to share some stories, especially in my book, Sexy Single Sober. I'm going to give the details, of course, withheld the names that are anonymous, but I am going to give more details and funny stories about the dating. But on the podcast, and maybe I'll give little sprinkles here and there, but for the most part, I want to keep it respectful. Remember, I've agreed to not emasculate or castrate any person or human anymore, and I want to try to honor that and stick with that. And I hope you guys are with me. Don't want to hurt anybody in this process. So, with that being said, we connected and we started messaging each other, and it was just uncanny how much we were jiving and the back and forth and the banter and all the things we had in common. And we were in a smaller circle, and one of my sons is familiar with him and knew who he was. And um, I was up at my youngest son's dance competition about an hour north, which was really great because I was sitting around being a chaperone and I had tons of time on my hands to just try to get to know this person through the portal. And then he gave me his phone number, which is, texting and all that is way easier. So I was able to, use texting, which was nice. I felt comfortable enough to reach out to him on texting. And as you all know, I do have a background checker. So I did put him in the background checker and it came back good, nothing to be worried about, which made me feel better. So all of you out there, if you're dating, I highly recommend um, you know, uh background checker apps. They do come at a cost, but like there's been verified and forewarn, and there's all kinds of different background checkers you can use to try to keep yourself safe, which I highly recommend because we definitely don't want to be in any more trauma centers, right? So I went through all those steps, followed my program. He talked about, I mean, it was just nonstop um, texting and hundreds of texts. And we decided to go on our first date, which was when I got back from that trip up north to chaperone my son's dance competition, which, by the way, he won first place in his dance competition, which I'm very proud mama for that. But we went on a date on that Sunday when I got back into town. We went for coffee at a local coffee shop, and I felt connected. I felt like everything was going well. I was super nervous. When you're a sober person out there dating, you don't have that liquid courage anymore. And um, it is a little edgy. It feels a little uncomfortable. And when, he was very chivalrous and respectful, and he, you know, a- set some, asked me about my boundaries as far as saying hello. And by that time, we had been texting for 4 days straight, and I felt comfortable enough to give him a hug to say hello, and I felt proud of myself about that. And we went to the coffee, and we literally talked for 3.5 hours over coffee, and it felt really good. I felt connected, um, and I felt like maybe this was going to turn into something. And so I agreed to a second date. He walked me semi to my car, and it felt good. And I took some journaling about it. I came home and I went to my playbook and I started looking at all of the things that we have put together as a group, right? So I started sizing him up against my list, my litmus test, which he seemed to pass all those 30 um, questions. I was checking no to them. I was comparing him with my standards, and all of those check boxes were checking off. And um, I have a list, in the playbook that talks about um, the standards and having evidence of the standards. So I was writing little notes of evidences, that things that he talked about, things he shared, and um, it felt really good. And even the partner standards, where we talked about, I'm going for this year, where we talked about, um, you know, the categories of integrity and partnership and emotional communication standards, all that kind of stuff. And after the first date, everything was a green light. Everything was a go. There were so many green flags, so many positive things about our connection that I was excited to move forward. Okay, and here's some things I started to notice about myself as after the first date, when I was wanting to move forward and wanting to continue to connect with this person, I noticed that as the week went on and all we were doing was texting, I was noticing that I was starting to lose interest because texting, I mean, I'm a 50-year-old, 51, 50 something year old woman, and I'm from that generation that voice, when I was a kid, we would be on the phone for hours with the cord wrapped around every stairwell and every little turn and every little, and I'm used to, that's my way of connecting, is being comfortable speaking and being on the phone and hearing that partner's inflection and emotions. And through text messaging, you don't talk about things like, if somebody asks me in text messaging how my day is, I'm just saying good. I'm not going through a whole novel in text of it was good, but this happened, or this weird buffalo. My son and I do this thing called good, bad, and buffalo. And it's like, there's the good and bad of the day. And then there's like this really weird buffalo incident that happened that you wanted to share with somebody. Well, you don't really go through all that um, over text messaging. So I text him halfway through that week and was like, "Hey, how do you feel about phone calls?" And his response was short and just, "Well, if you need something, yeah, but you know, texting is what his comfort level is." And I thought, "Oh, that's a bummer. That might be a boundary. That might be a problem for me to stay connected to somebody and to feel like we're progressing or moving forward." One of the things we also started talking about at the first date and through all the text messaging was pausing the apps from seeing anybody else. And you all are kind of getting to know me. Like, I am certainly happy to stop all the online activity because I wasn't really having a super positive experience with it anyway. I'm not sure who's having a positive experience with the online dating. I would love to hear if you guys are having a positive experience with online dating, and what are your little tricks? Like, what tricks can you share with me to be okay with the online thing, because it's hard. It's kind of yicky, sticky, right? And so I was happy to say, yeah, I like the idea of just seeing how it goes with one person. And we were connecting on all the things, all the check boxes were checked. And I'm like, why wouldn't I want to do that? But I don't know if I was getting confused or getting mixed messages, but even though I was agreeing with, yeah, I paused my match too, and I paused the online activity, but I wasn't saying that I was in a relationship yet. Like, I was still like dating mode kind of thing. But it seemed like we were moving into like a relationship kind of fast. And so that is one of the things that I kind of starred on my standards, was like, it was feeling a little rushed. And then there were a couple questions that came up in that first week of like, um, how intimate I'm willing to be and how quickly and how damaged am I. And what I also realized is like I said too much about my past traumas on that first date because I was preparing myself to put it out there and preparing the other person that I wasn't healthier than I wasn't as healthy as I am. But after I put it out there, I thought, "Oh, he's making assumptions and judgments based on what I told him and not knowing me very well." I mean, it's an accurate assumption, and I probably would do the same thing um, about me. That isn't true for me anymore. And so going forward, I'm probably not going to share too much about the past. I mean, if they really want to know the past, they can read my books, right? Just like you all can. I mean, I'm an open book. My story is out there. Um, but that story is an old me, right? I'm a new me today. I'm different today. And I want to meet people where I'm at today. And so I've learned that I'm not going to share as much on my next dates and in the future, um, because I am I've done the work, and I am a healed person. And so the other thing I learned about myself is that I really do have a desire to be cared for. And what cared for looks like to me may be different than what it looks like for other people. But I don't mean cared for in the sense of like economically, because I can take care of myself and I'm not looking to be rescued by somebody. Does that make sense? I'm not looking to be rescued, but I am looking for a long term relationship of my person, of my king, that is wanting to care for emotionally and mentally his queen. I am looking for somebody that when I say it's really important to me that I have voice communication at least a couple times a week. And what that provides me is this feeling of connection, of knowing how you're really feeling in your life, like being involved in your life and what's happening with you is important to me to stay connected with somebody. And when my king hears that he moves to action and and is willing to provide that. That's what I'm looking for in a partner. And so I tried to share that. So we went on date 2. And when I talked to my life coach before date 2, and date 2 was spontaneous, he texted me that morning and was telling me about his day and where he was planning to go. And he hadn't done that yet. And I'm like, oh, I think this is a hint, like kind of a spontaneous, hey, if you aren't doing anything, do you want to come with me? So I was able to in my work day. I had some flexibility and I said, hey, do you want some company? I can take a lunch break. Do you want some company? And he said, I would love company. And so we ended up the second date. Now, at the second date, because it was spontaneous, there wasn't a huge expectation. However, I started to notice some other things. So when we met up at a public place for our second spontaneous date, um, we did give each other a hug, but there was no compliments. And I noticed that about the first date too, because I am a person that my love language is words of affirmation. And I definitely do not want to be love bombed because that is like another red flag. So at the first date, I passed it off as like, oh, thank goodness, thank what a refreshing thing that he's not trying to love bomb me because we all know the red flag about that, right? But then on the second date, when there wasn't one kind of compliment the whole time, I thought, something to note to myself that this might be something for me. This might be something that means something to me. So then we went to lunch after our spontaneous meetup, and my life coach had encouraged me to talk about deal breakers, to get it all out there in the open and to have a face to face conversation about deal breakers. So we did that. And I thought it was going swimmingly. I thought we were meeting all the deal breakers and I thought we were passing all of those. And then at the end, he made a comment about one of his deal breakers might be if if something was a certain way, and I'm trying to share it without giving away information about a person, but if and I noticed about myself that I passed it off. I have this habit of giving people the benefit of the doubt. Do you have that habit? Do you have that habit of like thinking people are better than maybe they are and passing it off like, oh, he didn't really mean that. That was a joke, right? When I think he really did mean that. And that was a potential deal breaker for him, which was going to be for sure a deal breaker for me. And And I noticed, so I passed off, oh, gave him the benefit of the doubt of no compliments, gave him the benefit of the doubt that that deal breaker, he was joking about that. That wasn't like a real thing. So I agreed to date 3. And date 3, I realized a lot of my boundaries were tested and broken on date 3. I also noticed about myself that when I lose respect from somebody, um, in this dating process, when I lose respect for somebody, um, it's not going to work out. So, date 3, in my mind, did not go well. But I know in his mind, it did go well because I didn't say anything about what was going wrong for me. And I'm not really sure that it matters. Um, I'm not really sure what it would benefit by sharing with him what was going wrong for me. And I'm talking to my life coach about that because these were just boundaries and courtesies and things I thought were common sense, things in my world that I think matter. But I'm not here to try to change somebody. I'm not here to already on date 3 say to somebody, you should have done this, or if you wanted to make me happy, you would have done that, or I like to communicate like this, or you know, you should have done this or that, or I'm not sure that I want to do that. Matter of fact, I know I don't want to do that because at 50 something years old, I know people aren't changing unless they really want to change. And I'm not here to change anybody. I just know that things were not going well that day in this relationship for me. Things were not connecting. The dots were not aligning. I felt disrespected and I felt um, passed off. And also, again, no compliments. And I looked good. I dressed up. I made effort. I was excited to go on the date, and not one compliment all night. Not one. So for me, that's not going to work. Also, um, when somebody's making a plan to pick you up and you don't hear from them the entire day, um, and you just have to guess what time they're coming for you to make the reservation. But then they change the reservation and don't tell you they've changed the reservation. And so you've been ready for an hour and a half waiting for them because you're not sure what time they're going to pick you up. And you're telling yourself you're not going to reach out because you're giving him the opportunity to be that respectful man and to be that king and to let you know what's going on and what the plan is. When I had already indicated at the second date, I already had talked to him face to face about wanting and needing that voice connection to feel connected to somebody, and also needing to know the plan. Like, I need to know the plan. And I don't think that's asking too much for somebody to let you know if there's a 6:30 reservation that they'll be at your house at 5:30, or they'll be at your house at 5 o'clock, or they'll be at your house at a certain time so you can be ready. And when those things don't come through on date 3, that's a boundary for me that I need to look at. So after date 3, I really took the night to really think about those little things that went wrong. And I've realized that for me, it was time. And I was so proud of myself for being able to honor myself, because the old Emily, the old me, would have continued on. I would have continued settling for not having my needs met. I would have continued in a relationship based on how they felt. And I would have been more concerned about that he was happy and that he was interested in me. And I wouldn't have been concerned about how I was feeling. And I would have sacrificed and I would have put my feelings aside. And I didn't do that. And I'm very, very proud of myself for not doing that. So the next day in the evening, I took the whole day to think about it. I talked to my mentors, I talked to my life coach, and I talked to um, my recovery mentor, and I talked to another girlfriend. Like, I really was taking this into consideration. I have my advisory team on standby, ready to help me. I have people in my corner that know what I'm looking for, know what matters to me, know I'm not trying to change somebody, and I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, and I am trying to be nice. And decided that for me, at this point, um, there was no point in going any further. Um, and I was able to, with kindness, um, send him a message, because that's how he communicates. And it was just like, thank you. It was really cool getting to know you, and you're a really good person. Um, but I think for me, this is where it ends. And I wish you all the best and in the future. And he messaged me back and said, I respect your decision. And, he did ask me if he could ask why. Um, and I haven't responded, and I'm not going to, because it's not about that. It's not about anything with him necessarily. It was just that I've realized that we're not a match. I've realized that, like, I have standards and boundaries and needs, and I'm okay with finding that person that naturally is willing to be part of that with me. I'm not looking to change anybody right out of the gate. And if somebody's already not the match in that department, um, I'm letting it be okay that I move on. And I hope you guys do too. And so there you go. That's what happened. I am very satisfied and happy. I turned the dating apps back on. And I've realized I made my filters tighter, and I'm getting good at this, I think. I'm still not a fan of all these dating apps, and I'm not sure how long I will stay in it, but I'm going to keep trying, and I'm proud of myself. I've learned a lot. I've learned I like to be cared for. I know what happens when I lose respect for somebody, and respecting and admiring my next partner is super important to me. I really want to have those things. I've realized that when people have, even when people check all the boxes, I still need to trust my gut, and I still need to listen to myself. And I'm the interviewer now, I'm not the interviewee, right? And so I was so proud of myself for asking myself every step along the way, Emily, how do you feel about this person? Emily, can you be intimate with this person? Emily, what do you think of this person? Instead of in the past, I would have been all about, well, I wonder if he likes me. I wonder what I can do to make the chemistry there for him, or what can I do to cause chemistry, or what can I do? And I wasn't doing that this time, and I'm very proud of myself for that. And I was able to recognize potential problems for me in the future, and was able to adjust myself accordingly, in keeping my dignity and grace, and still operating from a place of a queen. Okay, stay tuned till next time. We're going to dig into this some more. I'm Emily Blossom, your sexy single sober sister in her 50s, and I'm super excited to share this journey with you. Please join me along the way. Episode 4 is coming, digging in to the burnout of online dating. Stay tuned.